Today I met a young woman out on the street. And after I talked to her, I cried. Literally cried after I talked to this lady. The lady, she was about 46 years old. I remember I had walked past her. She was always sleeping in this one particular place. And I really didn't say anything to her except this morning. I came and I sat down in this place. And I think she came over and she sat down next to me. And then I don't know, it started up. I asked her questions like, because what I like to do is I like to ask people questions about how they ended up homeless. Like, how'd you end up in this predicament? Because every person has a backstory. You weren't just born and then you got out of the hospital and then they came and set you on the street. No, you ended up on the street. There's a story. And when I realized that she barely even knew her own story or why she was out there, and she was learning disabled. So it's like, I remember she mentioned that her mother put her out when she was 14 years old. So at first I thought, well, maybe she been homeless. Like she said, she was 45 now, and she was put out when she was 14. So the first thing I'm thinking is, okay, well, she been homeless since she was 14. So 14, 24, 34, 44, that's 30-something years. Like, man, 30-something years. And I'm looking at her, and she looked like she had probably never even had a comb in her hair. And it was just unpuzzling. But then when she told me that, she mentioned she was learning disabled and she was receiving Social Security, or what would they call disability. But for some reason, somebody told her disability checks went out once every 3 months. So I never heard that. So then I remember, when I was in D.C., I went to Washington, D.C. back in like 2017, and I was there in 2020. And I knew that at that time, there were 14, I think that D.C. alone had 14,200 homeless people then. So I'm pretty sure that number is probably multiple quintuple over. It's almost we going into 2026. So I don't think the situation got any better, because all of a sudden there are people popping up living in places, and there's all kind of confusion, chaos and stuff going on. But at the same time, we got a lot of homeless people that gets very little attention or recognition. Now you got other people claiming to be victims. Well, what about these homeless people? And nobody ever, I never heard nobody mention these homeless people are victims. Well, how did they become homeless? 14,000 people. I was in D.C. and I remember seeing people that they looked like they had prominent jobs, they had prominent ownings. I saw somebody had a nice suitcase that opened up, mirror and everything. This guy's wearing gold and stuff like that. I'm like, why is he homeless? I saw this in D.C. A lot of people. Now, these are the real victims. And they'll know, I don't hear nobody talking nothing about it. Everybody talking about some racist stuff that didn't really exist until all of this stuff started. But nobody's talking about these homeless people, especially this girl. This girl who is learning disabled. That somebody told her that her check stopped coming. It was only coming once every 3 months, and then it stopped. So it didn't take me long to figure out somebody must have helped this girl get a place to stay. and probably helped her pay her rent or showed her what she had needed to do to pay her rent. And she came along, somebody came along in her life and took total advantage of this disabled girl. So this person is probably right now enjoying living off of her place or living on her voucher or whatever, and probably receiving her check while she out here on the street and she don't even understand why. And this is the real victim here. Ain't nobody talking about this. Nobody mentioned nothing about this. You know, and up until today, like today is Sunday. It's Sunday, the week of Thanksgiving coming up, 2025. And it's the first time that, you know, anybody start asking people questions. You know, you got homeless people out here. You got some that have real stories, you know, that have been taken advantage of. And probably a lot of them have had their identities hijacked, and maybe they don't even know it. And you got some of them out there, you know, I was listening to somebody say, he just decided to just do a cannonball and do whatever. So some people just choosing to ignore responsibility and whatever. And then you got some people that just tried to do their responsibilities and have been hindered greatly by a system that seems to have come alive and choked people. You know? And then you got people like this young lady here who's learning disabled, and then she's out here on the street. She really don't even understand why. And I can see that, you know, there's got to be God that is trying to keep this woman, that's keeping her comforted, because she was talking to herself. And I see a lot of people talking to themselves, and they're not really talking to themselves. They're talking to spirits, entities. There's something. Because you don't just have a full conversation with yourself. Somebody's listening. It's just other people don't see it. Especially, you know, for somebody like me that's, you know, spiritually inclined. Can I understand these things? So maybe we need to redefine and take a real look at who the real victims are here that nobody seemed to even know about. And one of the main reasons I cried, it's because I kept listening time and time again to some of these online phony, you know, AI prophets or whatever. People using them to speak into my life or speak over my life, and I keep casting it down and rebuking them in the mighty name of Yeshua HaMashiach. They would keep trying to tell me that I would be a vagabond, a beggar, begging for bread, trying to speak stuff over my life. And I'm like, people want to see me like that. And I have tremendous potential. You know, I have the capacity to become something much greater. Because that's a God put a bit of his creativity inside each and every one of us. And I just happen to discover some of mine, and I want to make it work. And I'm coming against all kind of opposition. I'm coming against, you know, people trying to tell other people who or what I am, what my behaviors mean, and all of this stuff. But where are the people that actually talk to me? Just like I talked to this lady. How many people have looked at her and determined that she's this and this and that, and other people don't even bother to go up to her and ask her? You know how you know, the Bible tells us to study to show ourselves approved. We can't just let nobody come speak over our life, say God said this, God said that, the Bible said this, without us verifying it ourselves. So why don't we apply that to life when somebody comes and tells you about somebody else? You don't know the story. What's sad there is, when we call victims problems, and whatever, you know, the real victims are called problems or issues. You got some people out there, they're not really victims. They just choose to neglect responsibility. Some do that. You got some of us that are trying to be responsible and being greatly hindered. Like, how sad day it is to see something like that. Like I said, that was the first time I literally cried. I cried. I wanted to help this girl, but I'm in a position where I can barely help me. And I could be doing much better right now if this system that we live in, which is supposed to be a free enterprise system or a free nation with laws, but sometimes I feel like I'm in a chokehold by this system. It makes no sense to me. How could this come to be in this nation, this free nation, where the only thing that can stop you is you, your lack of desire to go out there and get out and do something with your life. And I'm out here trying to do something with my life, and I'm out of all of this. It's like, Lord strengthens me, and I get my strength from Him. But what about people like this girl who's learning disabled? You don't seem to have any idea why she's even out there. How does that happen? Where's the help for her? What sad day it is when you see something like that in a nation like this.